Oisdalet. Apia now, based on the above, Ados was Eden haben sich vernommen mit Bisasayam. That the Yidden occupied themselves with the spoil of the sea. Is given kidei zu mekayim sein dem tzivui von Itzaltem es Mitzrayim. It was in order to fulfill Hashem's command. You should clean out Egypt. That's why they were enthusiastically and wanted to stay by the Yam to collect all the spoil to fulfill the mitzvah. In the minion. This also would answer another surprise in this subject. The other surprise would be, why did they need all this money after they already had the Bizas of Mitzrayim, which it says that they had tons and tons, and they were going into a desert, and they had enough. Why is it so much important to them to collect? But now we understand, because it was a mitzvah that they were doing over there. They weren't just doing because they needed it. So the question would be, why were they so involved in Bizas Hayam, in the spoil of the sea, to the extent as much they needed to be forced to go away from the Yamsuf. What kind of a benefit will they have from the Ribu Kesef V'Zohav, from this multitude of so much silver and gold, gaindik in Amidbar, while they are in a desert? The desert, Eretz Asher Le'ovar Bo'ish V'Lo Yoshav Odom Sham. No man passes there, and nobody settles there. So what do they need money for? Well, you're going to say, well, they're going to buy from the merchants outside of the desert, in Befrat, especially as Oif zu kennen Einkaufen in Yone Yitztarchus, in order for them to be able to purchase the things that they need from the Tagore Umas, from the merchants of the nations, is doch Oif them mervi genug. So for that, they had more than enough. Was Gehad Kesef V'Zohav from Bizas Mitzrayim, that they had the silver and the gold from the spoil of Egypt. Ukemaimer Chazal, as the saying of our sages of blessed memory, as a reis gaindik from Mitzrayim, that as they left Egypt, there wasn't even one Jew, each and every one of the Jewish people, who had not had with him Tishim Chamodim Lubim, 90 Libyan donkeys, to Uni Mekaspo Zahava Shel Mitzrayim, that were loaded from the silver and the gold of Egypt. Everybody had so much. So why were they so gung-ho to collect even more? Uli Idoch. And on the other hand, Oib Eden Hoben Dan, Far de Gezede Samaraglim. If Yidden then, before the decree of the Meraglim, Gerechet, they could swat. As gleich noch Kriyas Yamsuf, wenn sie hereinkommen in Eretz Yisrael, they thought they will go straight to Eretz Yisrael. They'll use the money not for the desert, in Eretz Yisrael. Und Gulas Mitzrayim will given the Geula Nitzchis she'ein acharei Golus. The redemption of Egypt would have been an eternal redemption, which had no Golus following it. It would have been so. They needed a lot of money for Eretz Yisrael. Doch sicher kein Ort nicht zu sagen, but it still doesn't have. It's not logical to say, as beim Greiten sich zu amatze von Geula Nitzchis, you are getting ready for an eternal redemption of Eden gesucht, that the Yidden were searching to ansammeln, to collect a ribui godel von Kesef V'Zohav, a lot, a tremendous amount of silver and gold. Why? But now we're saying it's a mitzvah. The Eibishter told them, and it's Haltas Mitzrayim. Vapi analysis for entered the pastures, based on the above, says answered very simply. Eden seinen gewähnt, Eusen zu Mekayim sein, zu Hashem. The Jews had intended to fulfill the command of Hashem, as soll sein, when it's Haltas Mitzrayim, that they should clean out Egypt. Ubemele, Haben sie dabei nicht gemacht, kein Cheshbonis. So they therefore made no calculation. Was faratoyel is they will haben davon. What benefit they were going to have from that? It's not about them what they're going to use it. They didn't need it for them, but they're doing the Abish's command. They have Makayim and the Tzivu Hashem. They fulfill the command of Hashem. B'chol levavcho b'chol nafshach, with all their heart and all their soul. Ubemela, so they wanted to do what Hashem wants. So therefore, they leave there against their will. Ubemela is that avegin from dort koydem shleimus hakim. Therefore, when they leave there before they were able to fulfill the full command of Nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, it's considered Balkorcham against them. And this could be even more understood according to the inner meaning of cleaning out Mitzrayim, of all the sparks that existed in Mitzrayim at that time, that the Jews did not want to leave until they were able to actually take all the spiritual biza, the spiritual spoil from there with them. Hey, the Yomtek Yosher Kol Hanal, all the above will be sweetened, like the Bir Pnimi, according to the inner explanation in the Inyan from the Nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, and this idea of that you should clean out the Egyptian. The Lechaida is nit moving. Seemingly, it's not understood. Farvos is given azoi wichtig der Inyan for Yetzu b'Lechush Gadol. Why was it so important? Shem says that they need to go out with this Lechush Gadol, so these as der Eibishter hat nicht gewollt lost in mevater sein of them. Shem did not allow them to forego that. The Yidden said they don't need the Rechush Gadol, go out earlier. He says no. He promised Avram, they must go out with Rechush Gadol. Why is it so? Now, this is Kesher Behesed. This is connected and it fits to the command and the prohibition, Bal Tashchis. Don't waste. And God is protective of the monetary of the Jewish people. The Rechush Gadol, this great fortune, meant that also means that holy spark was an given in their Kesef Ezov Shel Mitzrayim that were inside the silver and gold of the Egyptians. Und durch them was der Kesef Ezov is Arayin Reshus Yisrael, by the Kesef Ezov transferring and going into the domain of the Yidden, seine Din Netzutzis Nis'ale geworden, then those sparks were elevated, lifted up from Ervas Ha'ores, from the nakedness, the lowest part of the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim, the Reshus Bnei Yisrael, from Egypt to the domain, the possession of the sons of Israel, the Jewish people, they went into Kedusha, to Kedusha. Bald as the avoida from Birur Hanetzutzis, since that this service of sorting out this spark is an inyan ikri in avodas Hashem, is something a main aspect in the service of Hashem. Bis as dur der avoida fits sich ois the kavana skolabriya, through this service you accomplish the intent of all the creation to sort out and raise and pick out the nitzutzis. That's the purpose of creation, and that's the job that we need to do. So that is something very important. Hashem wants to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds by sorting out Dafke and sorting out and making the physicality into a dwelling place to Hashem, so that the Yid, Rechush, and the dwelling place of Hashem is there. The river, that's why we could not forego and give up this great fortune. And in business Hayam, the same thing is with the spoil at sea. By Kriyas Yamsuf, took place the spoil of the sea during the splitting of the sea of Yamsuf. Wissentlich dem größten Indien was wird getan. They knew the great matter which is accomplished through them Bidur Hanitzutzis in business ayam, through the sorting out of the spark of the spoil of the sea. They knew the great accomplishment, what's done when you take this business ayam and you transfer it from the Egyptians to the Eden. So the Jews, they were doing that work of birurim, taking the sparks. They did it with great energy. Nochmer, furthermore, those gufa was by Kriyas Yamsuf is given the Isgalus Ashchina, the fact itself that by Kriyas Yamsuf there was the revelation of divine in an Eifum from Zekeli. They were able to see, this is my God. Marin Etzba, they would show the figure. That means that revelation hat bei sie noch mehr verstärkt. So this further increased, strengthened the Mareintonsicht for them to put themselves in Lekichas Bizas Hayam, in taking the spoil of the sea, Bizin and Oifel B'chol Meidacha, to the extent they did it with all their being. B'mezet, that has to do with the fact that there was a revelation. As we see that when there is an experience, a revelation, then you get into it fully. As Ben Aid is Yedeo Margish, that when Aid knows and feels that Eibishter cooked sich zu, that Hashem is looking at, observing him. Wie is Mekayim a mitzvah, how he is doing a mitzvah. Tuter dos b'cholavov nafshe. Then he does it with all of his heart, all of his soul, and all of his being. Biz as bleibt nit bei ihm akoyach binyan, to the extent that no power, no aspect of the person was in nit reingetan in the mitzvah, which is not dressed up, invested in the observance of the mitzvah. So because there was the greater revelation, so they were so invested in doing the birurim, in doing the sorting out, which is the way of the ultimate fulfillment of the creation of the world, to make him a dira v'tachtonim. So that's why it's not surprising why they didn't want to leave. He had to force them basically to leave that important avodah to go ahead for Matan Torah, as the Rebbe explains now in Oizvav. Bov. And das is euch der Pirush HaPnimi in Yisrael Bal Korcho. This is also the inner meaning that he made them journey against their will. Nit chas v'sholim as Eden noch Kriyas Yamsuf. Not God forbid that the Jews, after they experienced Kriyas Yamsuf, haben nit gewollt folgen Moshe Rabbeinu. They didn't want to listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. Sicher haben sie mekayim gewinnt dem Tzibur Moshe. For sure they fulfilled Moshe's command, was is Tzibur Hashem, which is the command of Hashem, avegim from Yamsuf b'simcha v'tuv levov, to leave the Yamsuf with joy and gladness of hearts. Nor der pirush pnimim bal korchom, what is the inner meaning of against their will is, ados is bal korchom fun zer seichel v'avone b'Torah. It was against their will, was against their logic and the way they understood in Torah, be'inyan v'nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, how they understood how they were supposed to wipe out the Egyptians. Seien dik in ganzen reingetan in der Avodas HaBirurim, being that they were totally invested in the work of the sorting out from Bizas Hayam, the whole levavam nafshim v'idom, with all of their heart and soul and all their being, is that uprising sich der fun. So the fact that when they tear themselves away from this, given in an oifen from Bal Korchom, it was in a way like against their will. Was they tun das mitzat Kabbalah Soil? So they were doing it because they accept the yoke. Folgen Ratzon Hashem. They listened to Hashem. Aber kemuvam b'simcha v'tuv levav, understood with joy and with gladness of heart. So that means it was something beyond their logic, because logically they thought that that's what they should do. But yet, when they did it happily and with gladness of heart. We can even say more than this. Noch them with their Eibishter hasten its gain to Matan Torah. After Hashem tells them now to go to Matan Torah, haben sie gewusst, so they knew. Although they didn't understand it logically, as es hat sich verendigt der Kiyum, that the fulfillment, ubemele, the time, Zman HaMitzvah, the fulfillment of the mitzvah, and its ultimate Mitzrayim has been concluded. Because Hashem says, now we're leaving. Moshe says that is what we're doing, and that means that Hashem says that's what we're doing, and therefore they're going with joy because now this is completed the other work, and this is the new thing that we have to do. B'meila. And therefore, there's no point in staying here because if they've concluded it, they're not going to accomplish. If Hashem says, now we're going. And therefore, there will be no accomplishing of any spiritual elevation by continuing in the spoil of the sea. Let's say, for example, eating matzah. It's a food of belief that brings you emunah. Matzah, gashmis, the physical matzah, literally, is mechazik the emunah, strengthen the emunah. That's why it's called a food of emunah. If somebody will eat matzah in a weekday, not Pesach, it doesn't do anything. When does it strengthen the emunah? When the achilas matzah is in the Yimei Pesach, when you're eating matzah during Pesach. When the matzah noch Pesach, if you eat matzah after Pesach, then you don't accomplish this matter of emunah by eating it. Or in the koyach was achilas matzah, hotin sich lechazik emunah, the power that eating the matzah has to strengthen emunah. Or the Eibishter reingegeben auf a bestimmten Zman. The Eibishter gave that for a set time. Pesach time, eating matzah, the matzah has the emunah. Aber noch dem Zman after Pesach, when a chilos is not mitzvah, when the eating is no longer a mitzvah, so that power is no longer there. So you don't have it, doesn't give you emunah at all. And the same thing is after Bizas Hayam, the Netzutzis and everything else, you're not doing anything because there's no more koyach from the Eibishter. From this, we can learn, take out a very basic lesson in the service of Hashem. When a Yid is occupied with a matter in the service of Hashem, in them, he must be invested in it with his whole energy. With all of his strength, with all of his powers. To the extent all of your being, beyond any measure and limitation. You have to be doing the mitzvah, the idea, whatever you're involved in fully, without any limitation. Therefore, there is no room for doing something different, for another sort, for second avodah. So to such an extent as the Ibergame from the Avodah Tzveiter, when you have to transfer, go from one service to another one, is an inyan from Bal Korchei. It is like against your will. When you get, however, a instruction from the Shulchan Aruch, from his pastusa the Moshe b'chol dor v'dora, from the expansion of Moshe in every generation, as it's the Rebbe says, as it's dartman mafsik zayin from the avodah. Now you need to stop that service. Und ton in that zweiter avodah. Now we got to do another avodah. Montzich dan von Eden adover v'yifuch. Then the expectation, what's demanded of the Jew, is two paradoxes. One item and its paradox. Von ein side, on one hand, is by in lechatchila the hergish. To begin with, he has the feeling as the zweite avodah, the second service, is an inyan from Bal Korchei Kanal. It's something that he's forced to. Zayendik b'chol nafshe me'oide iberigegeben to the friedik avodah. Being that he's with whole of his nefesh, his whole being, he is devoted to the previous service. So to change it is something which has to be. It's like being forced. Le'idoch ober. On the other hand, however, darf oditnu a gufa from Bal Korchei. That movement itself, when we say that it's forced to bring him to, as we say, to al korcho chatochai, It's against your will, but you're going to live. You're going to bring chayis. It's going to be energetic. As al onhegen leben in the nayed avoda, he starts to live this new service. Bis to chayis amiti, to extend a true life, shalamaylam didav hagbola, which is beyond any measure and limitation. The bald is given mosur v'nosun zum rotzon Hashem b'tachlis. Since you were devoted and dedicated to Hashem's will totally in the Friedrich Avodah, in the previous service, you were dedicated. How do we see that? Because completely they bitu in the hergish von al korcho canal that comes to expression by the feeling that you must force yourself to change. Bakumter an emes and chayis, the nayar avodah, you get a true chayis in the new service that you have to do, because now this is the Ratzon Hashem, and all what you want to do is the Ratzon Hashem, and this is the change is the Ratzon Hashem. You do it with the fullest energy. So that's hard to move Bal Korcham, but then Bal Korcha Tachai, you bring in the Chayis. Oisches, und das ist euch die Hero bepoil. This is the actual lesson. Seifar Yeshve Oil, for those who, whether for those who sit in the tent, meaning those who study Torah, Seifar Balei Esek, and also for those who are occupied in business, in worldly matters. Yeshve Oil on first. Sie darfen sein in ganzen hereingetan in Limud Torah, although they need to be totally invested in the study of Torah. Aber wenn Shulchan Aruch sagt, when the Shulchan Aruch says, as es kommen die Zmanim von a mitzvah veres, that the time for a mitzvah that is passing, now is the time to do the mitzvah, or else it passes. From pekuach nefesh or by saving a life or similar. But they darfen sich abreißen von Limud Torah. They must tear themselves away from the study of Torah, sich oisig sein, and to occupy themselves in hatzolas nefoshes and saving lives. Afotzas HaTorah Vayadus, spreading Torah in Yiddishkeit, Chulu. Darfen sie das ton b'simcho b'chayim. They need to do this with joy and with energy. Ken doch machen a cheshbon. You can make a calculation. It's doch hasach geschmacker zu bleiben in pnim. It's much more sweeter to remain on the inside, innovating, inside. Und abgeben sich im Ganzen mit Limud Torah, and to devote yourself totally to the study of Torah. But was soll man areis gehen in Chutza? Why should we go out to the outside? Hein emes. It is true, let it be true. As kol ha'omer ein li ela Torah afilu Torah ein li. One who says, I only have Torah, he does not even have Torah. Nor es darf sein Torah gemilus chasodim. You need to have Torah with acts of kindness. So therefore, he will occupy himself also in Gemilas Chasodim. Aber das is nor was mi is im machriach azoyzuton. This is only forced upon him that he has to do so, no choice. Because otherwise he's not even going to have Torah. So less breder, no choice. He has to do also Gemilas Chasodim. So that from wissen, one needs to know as from them al korchach, that from this forced by uprising sich from Limud Torah, that you are tearing yourself away from the study of Torah, that werden atochai. You have to live by it. Ton in hafotzolos nefoshes, to be active in saving lives. Hafotzos haTorah, spreading Torah vayarus Yiddishkeit b'chulu b'simcha u'b'chayis, with joy and with energy. These in an oifer, to the extent in such a way as in this money, when he does that, is does sein ganze Metzias, that becomes his entire existence. So when he tore himself away from his Torah in order to do Gemilas Chasodim, he has to do it fully. Al korchach atochai. Al derech zeis deirot b'alei esek. In a similar way, there's also the lesson for those who are in a business occupation. Was Ikir Avaidosum is in Uvdin Tovin. Their main work is in good deeds. Sie darfen wissen. They need to know. Ados was a seinen mechuyev zu koiveya sein itim l'Torah. that this they're obligated to set up time for learning Torah. Darf sein nit nor a man. There needs to be not just a set time, in time set at a certain time, nor the leitem shir the abgepasken in the Talmud Torah, according to the measure as been ruled in the laws of Talmud Torah, how much each one needs to study. That's not sufficient. There needs to also be set in the soul. As in these manim, during those times, they are fully invested in limud Torah, in the study of Torah. Punkt is by them was Torah in the same way that it is by one whose Torah is his occupation. Test. Noch ahira von Inyan von Nisim al-Korcho. Another lesson from this, that he made them travel, forced them away from the business ayam. If this is so, when we deal with the birurim from physical silver and gold, that they were so occupied with the spoil on the sea, to sort out all the holy sparks that were in the Mitzrayim, in the Kesef and the Zov of the Mitzrayim, as a zone not even one spark should remain. Which has not been sorted out. How much more so? As a Zoid Arzain in the Ravedus Habirurim. That so needs to be in the work to sort out from a Karev Zain Eden to bring Eden closer. Or seinen erweitert geworden from Yiddishkeit, which have been distant from Yiddishkeit, to bring them back, to bring them close to Kiyum, HaTorah mitzvahs, to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. How much you see, how much devotion, how much dedication, that they didn't want to go away because they didn't want to lose one spark. This tells us how important it is. Ayid ken tainen. A Jew may argue, he already brought so many Jews closer to Yiddishkeit. So now he's permitted to rest from that work. Not going wasted and doing nothing, God forbid, nor but he's going to deal with a different, that which is more tasty for his nature and his intellect, to serve Hashem in the service of Hashem. He's already done in that level. He wants to do something which is more to his liking, which is more tastier to him and his level of nature and his logic. So one needs to know, as a darf nit cheshbenen, that you need not calculate how many Jews you already brought close to Torah mitzvahs. Is noch geblieben ein Eid, since there is 1 year left, that you are able to greichen, that you're able to reach him, and you had not brought him closer, you have to be devoted to that work. To the time that you get a instruction from the Shulchan Aruch, from the Spashtusa, the Moshe B'chol Dora V'Dora, from the expansion of Moshe in every generation. This to the Rebbe Nisiderena, to the Rebbe, our leader of our generation, an instruction from the Rebbe as Hayyim, that today, or the Mehayim, from today, Darfur ton another avodah, you need to do another service. Torah nit avegen from the avodah. You're not allowed to leave that service to mekarat zayin noch haidin to Yiddishkeit, to bringing another Yid closer to Yiddishkeit. Especially we talk about Yidden, about Jews, is doch jeder Yid an olam. Every Jew is a whole world. It's not just one. We talk about a Yid, we're talking about a whole world. Even if he already brought close many Yid, as is the Chaber Giblin, But since it still remains, noch ein Id, another Jew, one Jew, was is noch nicht niskaren geworden, which has not been brought close, is doch geblieben a ganze Welt. So there's a whole world, a full Welt, a full world, was is nicht mevurah, which has not been sorted out. Das ist a viele, wenn es wollte sich geredet wegen any. This is true, even if we're talking about one more Yid. Achas kama v'kama, how much more so? As es eine noch do kama v'kama, there is many and many was bedarf zuziehen zu Yiddishkeit, that we need to draw them to Yiddishkeit. Dafür avade liegen in them in ganzen. Then he must be totally invested in this fully, mit seinem ganzen Chayes, with his entire energy, in an oifen in such a way as man will him wegnehmen from the Aveda when they want to take him away from the Aveda. He's those Balkorchitz against his will, because that's how much enthusiastic and that's how much he wants to be doing that Aveda. Achas kama v'kama, how much more so? The menemtin batracht, when you consider, take into consideration, Adur Dambosimi is mevarer, that by sorting out a Yid, another Yid, or means a makanev to Torah mitzvahs, and you bring him close to Torah mitzvahs, that Yid werden soif am mevarer. So that Yid at the end will become somebody who is sorting out others. Those Tutsi and andere Yidden to Yiddishkeit. He will draw other Yidden to Yiddishkeit. For mitzvah, gereres mitzvah, because one mitzvah will drag along another mitzvah. These are the frat. Till, especially the mitzvahs, love thy fellow as yourself, so he will be loving another Yid and bringing another Yid closer. So consider that your act, this will bring about paytis, fruits, or paytis, and fruits of the fruit, to the end of the world. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parsha Shmini, Tov Shin Lamda.